We're going to go over the Families First Coronavirus Act that was passed back in April by Congress, provides for paid sick leave and paid family medical leave. It was a big thing when it passed, but those of us here in the Midwest, we weren't too impacted by COVID yet. Well, that's kind of caught up with us. So we're seeing more cases, we're seeing more positive tests. So I've had several people ask for a refresher on what the provisions of that law are. So that's what we're going to go over today. And then we're going to take questions on this topic or any other kind of personnel topic. We plan to be done by noon, but if there's other questions out there, if you need to go at noon or before, just log off. But I'll stick around as long as somebody has questions, okay? So, because I don't have anywhere else to go today. So I am here. So we're going to start with a PowerPoint to go over the basic steps or the basic provisions of, let's see, which one do I want? This one, I think. Okay. Okay. So can everybody see the shared screen? Yes? Okay, let me see. Okay, so everybody can see it. Okay, let me see if I can get this going. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see this. So going through this, provisions under Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is pretty much the same PowerPoint I did back in April. I think I did this. And I've updated a couple of things. A couple of things have been updated since we did it back in April, but it's pretty much the same topic, but just to go through it, okay? So this law went into effect on April 1st, and it is applicable through December 31st of 2020. So, but once December 31st is here, this all goes away unless Congress takes other action, which doesn't look real favorable right now. It applies to employers that employ less than 500 employees or public agencies. So all of you cities, you water districts, it doesn't matter how many people you employ, this will apply to you, okay? It does not apply to some federal agencies. Okay. All right. Any leave that's was taken before April 1st is not eligible for these benefits. Any leave that is taken after December 31st is not eligible for these benefits. So it's a very specific time frame, okay? There's two different types of benefits in this law. One is called the Emergency Paid Sick Leave, and the other is the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, okay? Two different types of benefits. They can run together, and we're going to talk about that later, but two very specific types of benefits, okay? So let's talk about the Emergency Paid Sick Leave provisions, okay? This benefit is eligible, employees are eligible for this from day one of their employment. They don't have to have been there for 30 days or 60 days or 2 weeks. From day one, you hire somebody today and this afternoon they get a COVID test confirmation, they can take this even though you just hired them. So from day one, no prior service period is required for this. But there's specific instances that qualify a person to take this. They qualify for the emergency paid sick leave if they are unable to work or unable to telework from home or wherever for the following reasons. If you're subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19. Now, when this first came out, the general consensus is just because the governor says everybody needs to stay at home that wasn't sufficient. But they've it was going to have to be pretty specific. But if the governor or the mayor or the county commissioner, a governmental official has issued an order that says you shall stay home, then you qualify for this, and you can't work from home. Okay. One of the keys here is that you can't telework either. Okay. So if there's been a isolation order, okay, you benefit for you qualify for this benefit. Also, if you have been advised by a healthcare provider that you must self-quarantine, okay, related to COVID-19. Now, this means a doctor, a nurse, nurse practitioner. I'm assuming the county health nurse can do this, okay? It can't just be you decide that you're going to self-quarantine because you've been in a group of people that have tested positive for COVID-19. A health professional has to say, you need to self-quarantine, okay? So you are eligible then to do this. The third one is if you have symptoms of COVID-19, and those are, those have been issued by the CDC on what those symptoms are. If you have symptoms and you are seeking a medical diagnosis, so you've got an appointment with the doctor, or you've taken the test and you're waiting for the test results, okay? Then you would qualify for this until you found out. So 1, 2, and 3 are basically dealing with the employee themselves, right? Now 4 and 5 are where the employee is impacted by someone else, right? So reason 4 is you're caring for an individual subject to an order described in 1 and 2. So you've got someone who is subject to a self-quarantine, okay? Or you've got someone who, let's see, what was number 2? I have to go back. You've been advised to self-quarantine. So you've got an individual that you have to care for that has happened, that has happened to. However, this person has to be an immediate family member or a person who regularly resides in your home, let's say a roommate, and they can't care for themselves. They rely on you to care for them, okay? You would be eligible for emergency paid sick leave. The 5th is caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed or your child care provider is unavailable for reasons related to COVID-19. Now, with school going back in, this could be affecting a lot of people, okay? So if you've got a child, we're going to talk more about that, okay? And then number 6 is kind of a catch-all. If you're experiencing any other substantially similar conditions specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. No other situations have specifically been defined here. So I would say this would be something really unique. All the stuff I've read is there's never been anybody taken this under number 6 because nothing other than what's been described has been applied for. So, okay, Cindy, on the telework, I can do some work from home, but not 40 hours a week. Do I qualify for the hours that I don't work? Yes, you do. Okay, so you can do intermittent. Now, the employer and the employee have to agree on this. And it can just be a verbal agreement, although I'd get it in writing if I were you. But yes, if you can only work certain hours, the hours you can't work, you can qualify for this. Okay, all right. So there were the 6 reasons you can qualify. So duration and pay under the emergency paid sick leave. Full-time employees, if you work full-time, and full-time is defined as 40 hours or more a week, okay? You are eligible for up to 80 hours of paid leave over a 2-week period, okay? If you're less than 40 hours a week, then that's part-time. Part-time employees are eligible for the average hours they've worked over a 2-week period immediately preceding the time you took off, right? So if you're a 40-hour-a-week or more person, that's no big deal. If you're part-time, then you've got to look at the previous 2 weeks prior to taking leave and what was the average hours that you worked over that 2-week period, okay? Now, if you didn't work over the 2 weeks prior, then it gets complicated. And there's all kinds of stuff on how you calculate it. You look back 6 months. I'm not going to get into that today, but if that is something that affects you, let me know or talk to an accountant, and they can probably walk you through that. But generally speaking, okay. So how much do you get paid? So for reasons 1, 2, or 3, that was the individual. You're either under a stay home order, or you're waiting on or have COVID, or you're waiting on a medical diagnosis. You can get paid your regular rate of pay or the applicable minimum wage, whichever's higher, up to $511 per day or $5,110 over the 2-week period, because it's 10 days over 2 weeks, right? So that's the most you can get paid, right? So if you're making more than that, they don't have to pay you more than that. $511 a day is the most you can get, okay? Now, they can supplement that. They can say, we're going to pay you, $600 a day, but the extra is on them, right? So they don't have to. For reasons 4 and 6, 4 was you're caring for someone that needs care. And number 5 is the same thing. You've got a child that you have to care for because their school is closed. Then you can only get paid 2/3 of your regular rate of pay, or 2/3 the applicable minimum wage, whichever's higher, up to $200 a day or $2,000 over the 2-week period. That's for both of those situations. So that's a situation where you're caring for someone, or you have a child that can't get in that can't go to school, okay? Now, emergency paid sick leave. You must give your employer some reasonable notice, but that could be, I've gone to the doctor this morning. He's ordered me to quarantine, and you call the office and say, I got to go home, right? It doesn't have to be X number of days in advance or anything. It can be pretty immediate. But as soon as you know, you need to contact your employer and tell them. The paid leave begins immediately. Okay. And we're talking about the emergency paid sick leave. You cannot require, and this is paid up, this is up front. You can't tell your employer can't say, well, you've got 4 days of sick leave. I want you to take that first before you take the emergency paid sick leave. No, the emergency paid sick leave is first. They can't require you to take other compensated time off before the emergency paid sick leave, okay? It comes first. The EPSL comes first. And it says the EPSL must be taken in 1-day increments. Leave can be taken intermittently for teleworkers only as long as the employer-employee agree. So that kind of got back to Cindy's question there earlier, right? But if you're taking the leave because you have COVID, or because you're on quarantine and you can't physically go to the office and there's no telework for you, you've got to take it in full day increments, okay? Because they don't want you going back to the office and exposing others, right? If you can telework and work partial, or if you can work from home totally, you don't qualify for this, okay? So you can take it intermittently if you're teleworking, as long as the employer and the employee agree, okay? Okay. So that was the emergency paid sick leave, okay? And that's for up to 2 weeks, 10 days, up to 2 weeks, okay? Okay. Now, the other part of this is the emergency family medical leave, okay? And most of you are probably familiar with FMLA, right? And this was language of putting this bill to basically enhance that. Um, that is a different benefit. So the employee must be employed at least 30 days prior to taking leave under these provisions of the law. Okay, so you have to have been employed for 30 days. This is for the employee who is caring for an individual subject to an order of quarantine, isolation, or subject to self-quarantine upon advice of a health professional. Again, doctor, a nurse, somebody has to say, you cannot work, therefore, and you have to take care of them. So it's got to be a family member, someone that you would be expected to take care of. You can't just volunteer to take care of somebody who lives down the street and say, well, I can take leave, so I'll just come down and take care of you. Nope, that won't work. Okay, has to be a family member or someone very close. Okay. Also can be taken for the employee who is caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed, or your child care provider is closed because of COVID-19. Okay, so you're caring for somebody, or you have a child under the age of 18 who needs care, okay, because their school is closed or whatever. Okay. Now, under this provision, I kind of got the first and second ones. I should have put the second one first. You're entitled to 12 weeks of leave under the EFMLA. Okay. The first 2 weeks of this are unpaid. The paid leave of this begins after the first 10 days the employee is on leave. Okay. So theoretically, let's say you have a child who needs care, right? Because their school is closed or their child care is closed. You can take the EPSL for the first 10 days, right? The emergency paid sick leave for the first 10 days and get 2/3 of your pay. And then take the, and take EMFLEA at the same time. So you'd use your EPSL for the first 2 weeks and use the EFMLA for the last 10 weeks of your 12-week period. Isn't that clear as mud? Okay. Now the 12 weeks that are included under the EMFLEA count toward the 12 weeks that you get under regular FMLA. So if you have already taken FMLA for your year and taken all of that 12 weeks, you can't double up here. Okay. If you've taken FMLA earlier and you've taken 2 weeks of that already this year, then you can only get 10 weeks under this. Okay. But the first 10 days, the first 2 weeks are going to be unpaid unless you piggyback it with the EPSL. Okay. So it goes with the FMLA. The paid part of this, you can get up to 2/3 of your regular pay, which or 2/3 of the applicable minimum wage, whichever's higher, up to $200 a day, or $10,000 total over the 10-week period under this. If you piggyback it with the EPSL, you can get a total of $12,000 over the 12-week period. Okay, that's the max you could get. Okay. Now the EFMLEA can be taken intermittently, which means I can take it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? Let's say you have a child who is going to school, but it's the alternate day scenario, which a lot of schools are going to now. Half the students go on Mondays and Tuesdays, and the other half of the students go on Thursdays and Fridays. Well, you don't have anyone to take care of your child on the days they're not there. So you take EFML, the thing, on the days that you have to take care of your child, right? So it can be taken intermittently as long as the employer and the employee agree that that's what you're going to do. Okay. Again, it says it can be an oral agreement, but if I were you, I would get that in writing from your employer. Okay. So some of the things for employers that have less than 50 employees, there are some exemptions. That if you can prove that complying would force you to close your business by allowing your employees to take this leave, then you can ask for an exemption. However, most of you are government, some kind of a government entity, probably not going to get that exemption. Employers of healthcare providers and emergency responders are exempt. You don't have to do that if you have those employees. Okay. Don't know that any of you would, but those employees can be excluded. The other thing, paid leave under this act does not carry from year to year. It ends on December 31st. So if you are in the middle of your emergency family medical leave on December 31st, that ends. You don't get to extend it. The pay is gone. You can still take your FMLA, but the payment part of that is gone. You're not entitled to reimbursement for unpaid leave under this law. If you resign or get fired or you retire or anything else, it ends. Okay. The other thing is, this is a one-time shot for the employee. Okay. So let's say you take your 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave, and then you leave that employer and you go to work for somebody else. You don't get another 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave under a new employer. It's per employee, per person. So you can't get it if you change jobs, if you've already used it. If you've used it, you've used it up. Okay. So changing employers doesn't get you another round of it. Okay. Some employers, there's some talk about you can get tax credits for the pay and for the health insurance that is provided to employers under this. However, everything I have seen is that it doesn't apply to governmental agencies. So you cities and water districts don't get the tax credit. Private employers do, nonprofits do, but not government. Again, I would urge you to check with your payroll processor or your accountant on that. But everything I read says governmental entities don't get the tax credit for this. Okay. It'd be really nice if you did for the city or water district, but I'm not seeing that anywhere. Okay. And actually, I've seen the IRS guidance specifically says governmental entities are not eligible for the tax credit. You do not get the benefit for the leave if you get laid off or if your employer shuts their doors. Again, for a government entity, that's probably not going to happen. Okay. But if your employer lays you off for lack of work, or if your employer shuts the doors because there's no business, then you don't get this leave. You would qualify for unemployment, okay, under those scenarios. So that would be your benefit there, okay. The other thing that came up with the school thing, and I don't have this in the PowerPoint, but there was questions about, okay, I've got children who are in school. The school's got the option of whether, my kids go virtual or my kids go in person. And I chose the option to go virtual. Can I get this benefit because I have to stay home and take care of them? The answer is no. If the school allows in person, that was your choice to not do in person. Therefore, you don't get this benefit. The physical presence has to be unavailable for you to get the benefit. Okay. So if the school is shut down or and is mandating that you do virtual, or the school is doing the hybrid method of some virtual, some on site, you can only get reimbursed for the part that you can't. You can only get the benefit for those days that your kids cannot be on site. Okay. So that's going to get a little sticky. And actually, I'm going to sit in on a webinar tomorrow. Martin Pringle Law Firm is doing a seminar on that very topic tomorrow. So I'll find out a little bit more about that, but that's what it's looking like. There is a new workplace poster that you should have been displaying from last April on, about these benefits. And if you don't have that up, you need to get it. The website is there. You can go to the Department of Labor website, dol.gov, and probably just search for workplace posters and find it. We will post this PowerPoint on our download section after this, so you can look at the PowerPoint. We are recording the session, so you can see this again, and we're going to have the chat available too. So, in several days, that'll all be available. But if you don't have this poster, you need to be getting it and putting it up where all your other posters are, right? And that is a picture of the poster right there that you need to have up, okay? And if you don't do that, you need to be doing it like yesterday, okay? So that is the poster. Okay. So that was a real quick run through of the provisions of the law. We're starting to see it in the Midwest here, so I'm open to any questions that you may have. Does anybody have any questions on this? Does anybody have any experience with this? And everybody's quiet. No? Okay. Let's see. How does the essential worker play into this? Well, there is, that's what Anita asked about the essential worker. The exemption is not for essential workers. The exemption is specifically for healthcare and emergency responders. So I would say, even though I know the water industry was considered essential, so you didn't have to comply with the stay-at-home order or the quarantine order, or the stay-at-home shelter-in-place order, but even though you're an essential worker, you still have to comply with this. So if you have a worker who has been tested positive for COVID, or otherwise qualifies for any of those 6 reasons or under the FMLA, then yes, they still get these benefits. Essential worker was not an exemption. Only healthcare providers and emergency responders, okay? So you're still liable for that, okay? I'm going to stop sharing my screen unless somebody wants to see it. So question is, how have other districts been able to benefit from county monies for COVID? Oh, okay. Yeah, and Andy posted the link for the poster. There have been some entities who've gotten some of the county money. Those of you that don't know, every county in the state of Missouri got some money to disperse as they saw fit in dealing with COVID-19. And I think Bobby Williams was on. Is Bobby still on? From Sullivan County Water District. They got some money to do some changes and improvements in their office, to put up, like to redo, and Bobby, if you're still on here, you can unmute and talk, to reconfigure their entry area, so that, put up barriers or whatever. And I think maybe even put in an air filtration system. I was talking to him a while back. So if you can tie it to COVID-19 and your county agrees, most counties have some type of an application process, I've noticed, that you go through, then, oh, Bobby appears to have gone. Then, apply for it. All they can do is tell you no, right? But there's some counties, I think, that are having some issues with what are we going to do with this money. It was a pretty good hefty chunk of money, okay, that they got. Now, some of the counties, I'm assuming like, Boone County, Jackson County, some of the bigger, more urban counties are probably using their money to boost the health department and, hire contact tracers and all that kind of stuff. But some of the more rural counties, you might be able to get some funds out of them. So, definitely ask. But I know that's what Bobby's doing. If anybody else has gotten any other county money, let us know. Put in a comment in the chat. So Brad asked, can sick leave be required before an employee takes extended leave, not the 80 hours? Well, yes. You're talking about the FMLA portion of the law. Yes, that's the way I understand you can. That it sounds like that's very much just an extension of the FMLA, and the FMLA. Brad, I'm going to back up on that. Because the 12 weeks under the emergency is concurrent with the 12 weeks under FMLA, and so 10 weeks of that can be paid under the law. So I'm going to have to do some more research on that, Brad. I don't think so. I think you have to give them the EFMLA, the paid part, if they request it. Okay. So let me double check on that. Okay. All right. Anybody got any other questions? We're only 30 minutes into our session here, so has anybody had employees take this leave? Brad has. Did they take the EPSL or the family medical leave?
Right now, it's not extended. He is currently in the hospital. I've had an employee in the hospital a little over a week with COVID, and I was specifically asking about the extended leave in case that becomes an issue. I just don't know at this point. You're muted, Liz.
There, okay. Sorry, I must have hit the wrong button. I know the EFMLA doesn't extend the original 12-week FMLA, right? So he can't get 12 weeks of emergency leave and 12 weeks of family medical leave. But you can give him the EMFLA, and then if he has vacation, sick leave or whatever on top of that, if you want to do it that way, right, to cover him.
I just want to ensure he gets a full paycheck while he's off. I mean,
right, and the employer can go above and beyond this. It's not that this is the max they can get. This is the minimum you have to require. So if you decide that you're going to go ahead and pay him even though he's out 15 weeks, the employer can do that. Okay. Now the thing, if he takes family medical leave or the EMFLA, his health insurance has to stay in place. He has to have a place to come back to when he's off leave. All of that stays in place, but you can certainly go above and beyond this if the employer wants to do that. Okay.
Okay. Well, one of the reasons I ask is Jefferson County they did send all the water districts a form so that we could apply for reimbursement for everything. And right. I just want to make sure I got everything in order, because it's like a FEMA form. You have to have everything just right and worded correctly.
So your county has elected to do that with their money then. So
yes.
Yeah.
You can apply. There's no guarantee you'll get it. They encourage you to apply. Right.
And I think that was the intent with not allowing governmental agencies to get the tax credits. There's other money for governmental agencies to tap, and probably this was one of them they were thinking of. So yeah, that may be another use for that county money, right, is to reimburse expenses. And that would definitely be an expense that you would have because of COVID, okay, would be those personal expenses.
Thank you.
So Cindy, you're the first one in Clarence. I hear, I'm from Clarence, and Cindy is the clerk and city clerk at Clarence, but yeah, I heard we lost a citizen there in Clarence last week from COVID. So that was a sad thing. Somebody said they had a few public works employees whose doctors said they needed to be off in April, but no one since. Okay. With cases coming up and with school, I think, especially if you've got employees that have kids, you need to be familiar with this, and because they may come and ask, my school's going virtual. I need to be off for the kids. Now, what they said too is that it's intermittent, because if it's a mom and a dad situation with kids, the mom can take certain days and the dad can take certain days, and you don't need to have dual people taking care of your kids all the time. So you can kind of spread out your leave that way. So, and again, if somebody says, I want to take off, but I don't want to use up my paid sick leave, I just want to take time off, that's fine too, if they elect to do that. Okay. Maybe they're thinking, I may need it in December, and they can do that. So, but it's going to I think we're going to see that more here. So you just need to be familiar with what the requirements are. All right. Okay. Anybody else got any questions about this? This was pretty quick and easy. What if certain children are ordered to quarantine, not the whole school? Again, you can take the EPSL, you can take that for 2 weeks if you have to care for someone who is under a quarantine order, okay? But if you're caring for someone, that's where the pay drops to 2/3 of your pay, okay? So yes, you can still take emergency paid sick leave. You can even take the extended if it lasts more than 2 weeks, okay, for taking care of someone who's either got COVID, waiting on a medical diagnosis, or subject to a quarantine order from a health professional, okay? And it's got to be a health professional. It can't be the school principal, okay? It's got to be a health professional that orders the quarantine or the stay at home, okay? So this can get real confusing real quick. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, somebody asked, talking about the County CARES Act funding, what did that topic entail? I think it's talking about Brad. So the county, each county got money. Brad, you're going to apply for funding to reimburse your employee costs of people that took leave to get that payroll covered.
Yes, the county offered it, so I figure we'll take advantage if we can.
Yeah. So you've applied for that funding. Like I said, we had another water district who applied for funding to do modifications to their office, as far as putting up barriers, and like I said, I think they even put in a air filtration system to help with that. So, and they got approved for that. So anything that's related to COVID-19 that you think that you want to do, or you think would qualify, submit it to the county, and and have them, the worst they can do is tell you no, right? But now some counties are letting the Regional Planning Commission administer those monies. So I know Randolph County is working with the Mark Twain Regional Council of Governments to administer their funds. And I've heard that around. There's several regional planning commissions that are doing that for the county. So if you've got a relationship with your regional planning commission, you might call them and see what kinds of things are they looking for, right? But definitely talk to your county. I don't see them funding things like new extensions, water line extensions, meter replacements, those types of things. It's got to be directly related to COVID-19 and dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. Okay. Anybody else got anything on this topic? Is employee eligible for extended leave if they are hospitalized, for example? I think so. Yes. You can take FMLA for yourself also. Let me double check. Go back. APSL. Let me look at this. So yeah, either you're subject to an order or you're caring for someone. So yeah, you can take it for yourself also. Okay, from what I'm seeing. But you can also take it for caring for someone else. So, okay. So it's always available for the employee if you've got it. All right. Okay. Any other questions on the FFCRA? Anybody have any other personnel questions they want to ask? We'll just open the floor to general questions. So Kathy, so if you take someone that takes the EPSL, does the district pay for that? Yes, the district pays for that. Or the entity pays for that. Is there any reimbursement for the county or state? Well, that's what Brad was talking about. He's going to make an application to his county to try to tap funds to reimburse him for those because that is a COVID-19 expense, right? You're required to pay wages for those people impacted by COVID-19. So that's a direct impact of the COVID-19. And you can ask your county to reimburse those expenses. Nothing from the state that I know of, other than those county funds, those funds that were given to the counties. And there's no tax credits that I'm aware of for you guys. There is for private business, but not for you guys. So, so that would be the only one I know of, Kathy. So if you've got people that are doing this, talk to your county commission, put in, because these are COVID-19 expenses that you're required by federal law to cover. So, okay, I would definitely look into that. Okay. Anybody got any other questions? Any other topics that you want to talk about? We got a little bit of time. We got 15 minutes.
Liz, this is
Yeah,
Kathy.
Kathy.
I have a question, and I don't know if you know anything about it or what information you might have, but the board was asking about the tax deferment and whether it's something that's required, optional, things like that.
Oh, the executive order that said you don't have to pay Social Security, FICA,
right,
that stuff. The employer doesn't. Well, here's my take on that. Okay, it's risky business. It's an executive order, and what the executive order says is that you can delay paying it. It doesn't forgive it yet. What Trump has said is that if I get reelected, I will make sure that gets forgiven. But if it doesn't, you got to pay it. So most employees are saying, we're not going to take the risk. We're going to go ahead and take it out. We're going to go ahead and pay it in because we don't want to take the risk that if it's not forgiven, then we've got to come up with all of that. Plus, you have to take it out of your employee's paycheck at that point. Well, that's not going to be fun. Okay. So most of the people aren't doing it because it's too much of an unknown at this point. Okay.
Well, the board member was making the comment that if, I guess if you were maybe a federal retiree or your Social Security checks or an employee of a federal government or government municipality, anything like that, that you were required
No,
to not
that's
do
not
that.
true.
I didn't think so, but
No, that's not true. No, that's not true. Not that I've seen. It was voluntary, and but there was no guarantee that you wouldn't have to make it up later on. So nobody that I know of is doing that.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable doing it myself, but just because there's too many unknowns at this point. And even if he does get reelected, it would take an act of Congress to solidify that forgiveness. And again, you know how that goes. So no, I can see his point, but no, I wouldn't want to do that. Denise, fall conference, it's been canceled. We will not be having it this year. So hopefully next year this will all calm down and we can go back. But no, we won't be doing the fall conference. So Mark, Mark says she's right. Wife is a federal employee and they have to do it. But federal employees play by a whole different set of rules than local government employees do. So thanks for that clarification, Mark. Okay. So yeah, it's all kind of confusing right now. So, okay. Lisa asked if we'll be doing this again. We do. Well, we do. I do a 1 hour clerks Zoom like this every month. We do one a month, different topics every month. So look for our announcements. We'll send it out on our e-newsletter, the next one we get scheduled. It probably won't be on a Tuesday next month. They'll probably move it to either probably Monday or Monday or Wednesday. And the reason is I talked to our attorney, Doug Silvius, and he offered to sit in on these and be available, but he can't do it on Tuesdays. So we're going to probably move it for that. So keep that on those of you, we have a MRWA Office Professionals Facebook page. If you're not part of that, you can ask to be a member of that. And we put this on the Facebook page too. So, look for it, but we're going to do it every month and you can join or not. And yeah, Mondays are too crazy. I agree with that. We'll probably do it on Wednesdays. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? Anything going on? Denise, can I bring up your question that you emailed me earlier this morning? A little change of subject, but Denise asked if using postcards to send out utility bills on was okay since everybody can see the information. The answer is yes, it is okay. Some people think that's an invasion of privacy, but actually there was a court case back in the 90s that involved the city of Springfield that said, the judge said, name, address, and water bill are public information. So there's nothing, I hope you're not putting any, Social Security numbers or anything like that on your bills. But yes, putting it on a postcard and mailing it. I'm assuming most people I know do that. Okay. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And just because people get upset, they put a red stamp on it, past due, when they mail it out. If they've got a past due and knows that they haven't paid the bills. Sorry, that's not confidential information. So, So let's see what else we got. Yeah, Kendra says Wednesdays would be better for the meeting. Mondays are crazy. They love using the subs billing program, and you send that on postcards. Yeah, we have a small utility billing software for very small utilities that go on postcards. So yeah, Cindy, you switched from postcard because of lost bills in the mail. I'm hearing some of that, but yeah, and they get caught up in some of the machines that get torn up too. I've heard that, but I would say majority of people use postcards still. What about confidentiality if someone gets COVID? I'm assuming you mean if an employee gets COVID, is that confidential? You have to be careful. I'm assuming the medical part of that is under HIPAA, but you can still notify that you've got, you need to do the tracer study or tracer study. You can tell them a water treatment person, can't you? The contact tracing, the health department, working with the health department. If you're a very small office, everybody's going to know. Now,
Can everybody hear me? Okay. Liz is experiencing, there she is.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. I don't know what's the, okay. So, so the question was about COVID. I would say you'd have to be careful with specific details, but you still have to communicate with your health department. You would have to communicate with other employees that it's there. And Andy, I've lost my chat box. So. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Oh, wow. I just lost all my chat. All right. So Andy, you're frozen now. We're having technical difficulties here. All right.
We'll call it a solar flare.
There we go. Okay. Sounds good to me. All right. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about? My chat box just completely disappeared, you guys. I lost all the chat. So if you typed a question, either ask it again or type it again. No.
Nothing.
Those are quite nothing new. Okay. All right. We got all right. Any other things you want to talk about? We got about 4 or 5 minutes left. Okay. One thing I want to remind everybody, just do a little plug. We are doing board and council training, virtual board and council training on September 29th, September 30th, and October 1st from 6:30 to 8:30 at night. So if you've got board members or even some of you clerks want to attend, it's going to be virtual, Zoom like this one. And sign in. You register on the MRWA website, and then you'll get a link to sign in on Zoom. And it's registration. So you got anybody that needs to attend, that'll be the end of the month. Look at our website under training. It's there. Okay. So, and we're going to limit it to 20 people. So, and I think I've got 15 signed up so far. So we still have some slots. So if you got anybody that wants to sign up, probably do it sooner rather than later. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions or concerns or burning issues. So watch for us next month, and we'll catch you the next time around. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Sorry about the issues, the glitches at the end. We'll see you next time.